Hello and welcome to this first lesson looking at a basic introduction to Python programming. Before we start, there are 3 questions on your screen, so pause the video at this point and have a go at researching online what is Python, how much Python costs, and then what the advantages of Python are. As I say, this is the first lesson in a 5 or 6 lesson series looking at an introduction to Python programming. During this lesson, we're going to understand what high-level programming languages are, as well as some of their advantages. We're going to understand how to open idle or Python online and write your first line of code. And we're going to understand how to combine a couple of different parts of Python to create a very basic chatbot. That is a computer program that can hold a basic conversation with us. So Python is what we call a high-level programming language. Just like human beings, computers can have different languages that they can learn or be taught to understand. Python is one of those. Good thing about Python is that it's free to download. It is totally free. It doesn't cost any money at all. It also runs on Windows, Mac, Linux, and many more. So if you've got a mobile phone and you go onto your App Store, you're probably going to find a Python app on there. Python is a clear programming language which is fairly easy to learn. There's lots of tutorials online because it is taught in lots of schools across the UK. There are 2 key ways of getting Python at home. The first route is that you can download and install Python on your computer, or we can use Python on the internet. So if you wanted to download Python, if you think you might be using it a lot, you can go to python.org/download, and it's a fairly simple install process whether you're on Windows, Linux, or Mac. As I said, there's also Python apps for iPhone and Android, so if you go onto your App Store, you should be able to find those. The slightly easier route, though, is to use Python online, and if you're struggling to install Python, use this link instead to get onto Python online. You can then do all of your code on the internet and just download that to save your work at the end of each lesson. I will post this link into the comments section below. So as I say, if you're struggling to download Python, use that link instead, and you can then do everything that we're doing in today's lesson, but on the internet with no install needed. As we know from our previous units, computers run on ones and zeros called binary. Binary is the basic number system that all computers work on. A binary, however, is really complicated for humans to understand. If we look at a letter A, there's 7 or 8 ones and zeros just to make up that very basic letter. It will be incredibly hard for you to write binary code that actually meant anything. As such, we use something called high-level programming languages. Those are languages that are coded kind of like the English language. They use key command words, print, input, output, to do certain things, to do certain tasks. Those languages then converted into binary by the computer for us, so we don't need to worry about the lower level binary code. We're now at the point where we want to start thinking about using Python. So I'd like you to either open up Python, open up idle, or go on to the internet version using the link below, and I'm going to pause the video in a second and just guide through opening that part up. If you have downloaded Python, you're going to want to save your work before you begin. So on the right-hand window, you're going to want to go File, Save As, and call that My First Python Chatbot. If you're working on the online version, don't worry at this point. So the first thing any computer program needs to do is to print out and say something to the user, whether it's hello, hello world, hello, my name is Bob. We nearly always want the computer to start by saying something. And to do that, we use what we call the print function. The print function, funnily enough, makes the computer print onto the screen whatever text or whatever words we want the computer to say. We start off with the word print. The word print needs to be written in lowercase. There's no capitals at all in any of the command words in Python. We then place a curly bracket and a speech mark, and then we write the words that we want to say. So in this example, the computer is going to say hello world with an exclamation mark at the end. Now our brackets and our speech marks always come in pairs. So because I've got a bracket and a speech mark at the start, I need to make sure I put a bracket and a speech mark at the end. At this point, I'm going to move on to the online version of Python and guide through exactly how we can make the computer say something, and it may be that you open up your online version and do the same at the same time. So I've now opened up the Python Online website where we can use Python without needing to install it or worry about any form of updates. I've got 3 main tabs. This shows me my saved files, but only if I've logged in, and we'll deal with saving later. This middle section is where I write my code, and this right-hand side is where my code then runs. Now we've just looked at how we can make the computer say something using the print command. So I can type in this middle section print, an open bracket, and usefully it puts in the closing bracket for me, an open speech mark, where again it helpfully puts in the closing one for me, and then I can write in whatever I'd like the computer to say, for example, hello world. I get some tips pop up here that we don't really need to worry about. I can then press enter and write my next line of code. Watch what happens now though. I've written print, and in my speech marks I've written hello again. What have I done wrong? Well, my print is all in capitals. Now my print is in capitals and therefore it hasn't gone blue, and it's also underlined in red as if it was spelt incorrectly. If I hover on it, it says undefined name, print. It's giving me a really big clue there that something that I've written is not quite right. So if I change my print, everything is great. Let's look at my first print statement. Well, I want my program now to run. I want my computer to actually say this thing. Funnily enough, I click the run button at the top, hit run, and over on the right hand side I'll then see my program run. So I could then go again and write hello world, my name is Bob, and click run again, and my whole thing is going to reset and run the exact same program again. Okay, so we've now had a look at how we use the print command. So I'd like you to pause the video at this point and take a go at the activity on the screen. So I'd like you to write at least a line of Python code where your chatbot introduces itself. Most of you will add some extra lines to make the chatbot maybe tell us something about itself, a joke or something like that. And if you finish that, see if you can figure out how to run your code to make the words actually appear. Pause the video at this point and have a go at that activity. So your code should have looked something like this. If you're using either Python Online or the downloaded version, you will find that your code is color-coded. But on my example, I've said, hello human, my name is Bob, I live inside your computer, I hope you're having a nice day. All of my prints are in lowercase, all of my brackets are in pairs, and all of my speech marks are in pairs. Now, if you're using Python on your computer, if you've installed Python, you're going to need to run your code by pressing F5 on your keyboard. So press F5 and your code should then run in the same way that it does in the online version. Something a little bit different just for 30 seconds. Pause the video at this point and see if you can work out what the following pictures have in common. Hopefully you begun to figure out that those are things you have studied this year or will study this year. Those are all different programming languages. So Scratch in the top left-hand corner, the dog is scratching. We've then got Python underneath, and the one on the right-hand side is tough. But if you read the letters going down the left, you've got HTML. And HTML is the programming language used to create websites. So what do those things have in common? Well, those pictures all represent a programming language. So back to our chatbot. Our chatbot wouldn't be very good if all it did was to talk at us. We want the computer to ask us some questions and let us talk back. We do that using the input command. So I firstly write the name of my variable. A variable is where we can store something. So if I'd ask the person's name, I might put name equals. If I'd ask what sport the person liked, I might put sport equals. I then write input in lowercase with brackets at the end. Input means that the user should be allowed to reply back at that point, and we save whatever they say into the variable. So sport equals input would let them reply and save their reply as sport. Food equals input would allow them to reply and save their response inside the variable of food. So I'm going to go back online just for a second and have a look at how we can use the input command to allow us to write back to a computer program. So we're now interested in how we can write back to the computer, and we've just looked at how the input command works. So I firstly need to ask a question, and a fairly basic first question would be, what is your name? I then need the user to be able to reply back. So I'm going to put name equals input, because name is the thing they're replying back to. You can do that for other things. So if I ask, what food do you like? And question mark, I could put food equals input. Now the one rule is that this variable name here and here cannot have spaces in them. So I couldn't call that fav food, meaning favourite food. I couldn't put fav there with a space. I could, though, put an underscore if I really wanted to sort of show a space in there, but I would try and stick to single name variables. If I then click run, it's going to run over here. Hello world, my name is Bob, what is your name? And it's going to pause at that point. It's pausing, waiting for me to reply. So I put in my name and I hit enter, and then it goes on to the food question where I can reply pizza or preferably something healthy. Press enter again and my code will run. So take a look at my code over here before you then move on to have a go at the next activity. Pause the video at this point and have a go at this activity. I'd like you to write some code so that the chatbot asks your name. You should then create a name variable that saves the response. I'd then like the chatbot to reply with something like, oh, that's a nice name. If you're finished, you could add a couple more questions where the chatbot always gives a suitable response to the question. Pause the video at this point and have a go at the activity. So your code will look something like this. On my third line, I've got print, what is your name? I've then got name equals input, and then print, that is a nice name. If you've done some other questions, that's even better, and it should just follow the same 3 lines. Print, and then the question, something equals input, and then print, that is a nice name, or print, oh, I like that sport as well. Pause the video at this point, and I'd like you to have a think about what the following 2 lines of code do. They look fairly similar. Oh, name is a lovely name. But the speech marks are slightly different, and there's a plus symbol in both. What do we think each of those is going to say? So the top example is literally going to say, oh, name is a lovely name. The bottom example is going to input our variable of name into that sentence. So if I replied with Bob earlier on when we asked our name, the computer would say, oh, Bob is a lovely name. If I replied Dave, the computer would say, oh, Dave is a lovely name. So this code is going to allow us to personalize our program a little bit more, so that whatever the computer says is personalized to that particular user. At this stage, we're going to jump back online and have a look at how we can use that within our Python program. So for the last part of this video, we're going to look at then how we can use this name variable when the computer applies. So I'm going to put my print statement and I'm going to say O. After the O, I'm going to put plus name plus. Now you'll notice that doesn't go red. That means it's going to insert the variable rather than literally say the word name. And then I'm going to write is a nice name. Now there's going to be a slight problem here when I run this. So I run my code. What is your name? Matt. and it's put "oh, Matt is" as one word. Now the computer is only going to say the things in red, so I need a space after the O and before the is so that it puts spaces, because it won't know to put spaces unless I specifically tell it we need a space in there. So by doing this, it's going to put the variable of name in there instead. Now you can do that with all sorts of different statements. So we could say, oh, I like the name, and then put plus name. Now because name is now at the end of our sentence, I just put plus name. I don't need to put another plus at the end. And if I run that, I'm going to say, oh, I like the name Matt. Now again, if you miss out something, if you miss out the plus, for example, and try and run it, we're going to get some sort of red error message come up over here, and it's pointing to where it thinks the error is, and it's right that I've missed my plus statement there. When you finish your code, it's going to be really important to save what you've done. If you want to sign into this website, you can click sign up, and you can save then your files over here. If not, copy and paste this code somewhere onto your computer so that you've got it ready for the next lesson. So, as a final activity, I would like you to complete your code so that your chatbot replies with something more specific. So rather than saying, oh, that's a nice name, it could input the user's name as part of that. If you finish, you could ask a couple more questions where it uses the person's name as part of the question. For example, what is your favourite sport, Bob? Or what is your favourite sport, name? Pause the video at this point and have a go at that activity. So in your pairs, or if you're watching this at home more likely by yourself, have a think about the following questions. How could we expand what we've done today? What other things might we want our chatbot to do over the next couple of lessons, and how might we go about achieving that? Hopefully you have found this video useful, and hopefully you're now able to do at least a couple of the objectives on the screen. Hopefully you understand what a high-level programming language is. Hopefully you've got some idea how to open Python either on your computer or online and write some basic code. And hopefully you've written a couple of lines of code that combine together to create a very basic chatbot. Hopefully you have found this video lesson useful. Thank you very much for watching.